All right, hello everybody, and welcome to the Frantic Talks podcast, episode 54. I am your host, Frantic. Along with me, as always, is my lovely co-host,
Grunt
and we're here to talk about video games
and junk.
and junk. All right, so we're going to start off with me saying I apologize if I sound sluggish. It's been a long day already. I'm just really tired. So Grunt might have to take the wheel, just like Jesus did in that one song. And from there, he will steer us in the right direction. Either way, we have a very fun topic to talk about. I've been looking forward and thinking about this topic for the past 2 weeks, and it will have to do with game developers and them playtesting their games. We'll get to that. First, I'm going to start with advertisements, which is really just self-promotion. If you want to continue the conversation beyond the podcast, you can head over to twitter.com. You can search up me. I'm at FranticJ3. He is at Onyx Spartan, ONYX, all one word. And then we are at Frantic_Talks. That would be on Twitter. If you head over to Facebook.com/Frantic Talks, all one word, you will find pretty much the same stuff on Twitter, but in a more elaborated format and a more Facebook format. Hence why it'd be on Facebook.
More pictures.
And yes, more pictures. That is kind of the appeal at this point. That's the only real difference, I think. And a much easier to understand commentary. Either way. You can also head to, I don't know what would be next, Twitch. Sure, let's go with Twitch. Twitch.tv/Frantic Talks, again, all one word. We are live every Saturday, usually, at 3 p.m. Eastern, usually. Both of those statements have been false the past week, because we were not live last Saturday. We are live this Saturday. Yeah, yes, that was my fault last Saturday. And this Saturday, we're live at 3:20 instead of 3 o'clock. Not my fault, although he will still say it's my fault.
Totally your fault.
Apparently. So, either way, live every Saturday, usually at 3 p.m., usually. There's a little asterisk. That's that, basically. After that, you can head over to the mothership, frantictalks.com, which I will now put up on the background. Please work. Yeah, it worked. Where you can find all of our lovely podcasts, along with our different categories of articles. And you can also head over to magic.frantictalks.com to check out articles written about Magic the Gathering by me and a couple of my friends, named Luke and Bob specifically, if you want to know their names. I believe Grunt will eventually start writing over there too. I know we bounced around ideas.
I'm currently working on something right now, as well, not right now, but I'm working on something.
You mean you're not literally just writing articles when we do these podcasts? What do I pay you for?
Well, I mean, okay.
I don't.
That's a fair point. I was triggered by triggered ability earlier in the week.
Oh, that was really funny too. All right. Either way, I think beyond that covers everything. YouTube. If you click on one of the links on the screen, so on frantictalks.com, click on the podcast, you can find the video version of these podcasts that are normally broadcasted to Twitch, like I said earlier. If you ever want to see the visual interactive pieces of it, sometimes there's more than just links on screen. Like the past couple episodes, we've done top fives, and you get to see some pictures that go along with the narrative that we're talking about. This week... Pictures. Yeah, exactly that. Check out some really cool pictures that kind of reinforce our point or just kind of go along with it. Don't really have too much this week, not going to lie. It's just going to be our websites. Either way, you can check that out on the podcast link, like I said, or you can head over to youtube.com, search up Frantic Talks, subscribe, and you will be notified every time we upload a video. There also are the Sunday show that I do where I try to talk about usually metal music. I have a really fun video that I'm going to do tomorrow that I'm really looking forward to trying out. So far, I've just been analyzing music, and I think tomorrow I've written up the script a couple of times. We've gone through it, and definitely like what I'm going to do with it. It's going to be really fun, and I might as well spoil it now because the podcast doesn't get posted till Monday. I'm going to talk about some top 5 albums I am going to enjoy 10 years from now. It's an interesting idea I had, and if you are interested, check out the video for more details. It's kind of interactive, where I want you to kind of participate in what I'm saying, but other than that, it's just kind of me saying, here's what I like, and I know 10 years from now I'll like it then. And I pass the question to you, essentially. So
Interesting. I kind of thought it would have had to have done something with Avatar, considering you've been on an Avatar kick this week.
I'll talk about that. Let's start with the weeks. Grunt, how was your week? Because we've gotten through all the advertising, I think.
How was the past couple weeks, rather?
Yeah, past 2 weeks.
It's been pretty great. As some of you may know, if you're watching the video format, I have a new chair. No chintzy little metal folding chair that I'm sitting on anymore.
Well, that's tragic.
It's not tragic. That chair was uncomfortable.
Oh, for the chair. All it ever wanted was for you to sit on it.
chairs don't have feelings.
How dare you?
Exactly how did I? Anyways, yeah, I bought a DX Racer chair and for my little gaming corner slash workspace here, and it's very comfortable. I've been enjoying it so far.
I'm gonna apologize. I just took a drink of my drink and it decided to make a noise. So, ice water will do that. Continue.
I don't know if I can continue.
Yeah, you can.
How can I top the ice water, though, man?
I don't know. Ice water's pretty kick-ass, for being honest.
See? But yeah, I bought that chair. I highly recommend them if you can afford one, because they are very comfortable.
I'd say how much are they, but I don't know if you want to share how much was spent on your chair. Some people don't like talking about that, so...
Well, I mean, you can be found out on the website easily enough, so...
True.
DXRacer.com. At least I'm pretty sure that's the web address.
Do that while you talk here.
Alright. Yes. I bought it in what I believe is your favorite color, red.
And black and white. Yeah, those are my 3 favorite colors, not lying.
Alright, well, there you go.
Right, it's definitely your chair.
So yeah, before that, it was actually a couple weeks ago, and I forgot to mention it, but since we're talking about the color red, it reminds me of my brand new Xbox One controller I bought.
Oh, right, I saw that. It looks really sweet.
It does look really sweet. I can't reach from here. I'd pull it up on camera, but it's across the other side of the room, and...
Don't worry, I can do banter real quick.
Alright, banter, go.
Oh, man.
Banter,
Are you back?
done.
I just sang a song. And that is the... I'm going to make you... I'm going to edit this really quick. You're going to get bigger. Oh my god, my screen just made noise. Check that out, guys. We're zooming in on this awesome red... That's red all the way, man. Like, not even highlighted.
Yeah, it's got a really dark red back to it. So, it's nice. This is actually the second controller like this that I've had. I got another one that was identical to it, but for whatever reason, my audio controller for my Turtle Beach headsets, these I'm wearing right now, didn't work in it.
Oh, that's tragic.
So I'm like, well, maybe it's something wrong with the controller. So I took the controller back, exchanged it for this one, had the same problem. Contacted Xbox support. They tried to help me the best they could. They eventually, I think, caught on that there's maybe something wrong with the controller, but other audio controllers for headsets like these, because my dad has an identical pair, worked in it. So it's a weird issue. The curiosity in me is getting the better of me. I really want to know why that doesn't work, but it's also just mind-boggling.
I really hope, because I know that the controllers, when you plug them in, you have to update your controller, which is kind of foreign to me. Well, not foreign to me particularly, but I know a lot of people are like, what do you mean my controller needs an update? I wonder if they'll release a hotfix just for your issue. It'd be really funny. I'm sure you're not the only person with this issue.
I would hope not, but, basically, to remedy the problem, though, all I did was just take the adapter, or the adapter, it's not even an adapter, the audio controller from my dad's headset and use it for this one. So, simple solution to a really frustrating issue.
I just figured out I can mute my mic to drink my ice water.
Well, there you go.
So if you're watching this live or the video, that's what I just did. Keep going, sorry. I've interrupted you so many times. This is not good.
Now you have me lost. All right.
We were talking about the controller.
Yes, the controller is done. I also, a couple weeks ago, last week, whenever it was, I don't remember, picked up Scion of the Ur-Dragon.
Ooh, that's a magic card, for those of you that don't know. It costs one of every color, and it is a dragon. It also searches out dragons. Pretty cool.
So I'm brewing an EDH deck around it. I think I figured out what I would like to do with it. I want to play around its ability as most as I can. But I'd also kind of like to get some of those creatures back. So I'm thinking of maybe finding some cards if I can that hopefully aren't like $100 to put in there. Let me bring back creatures from my graveyard. Because don't you pay like 2 mana, and then you search your library for a dragon card, you reveal it, and then Scion of the Ur-Dragon becomes a copy of that dragon until end of turn.
Yes.
Then you put the dragon that he's a copy of, the actual card, into your graveyard. So I would like to play around that ability, but have it to where I can get those cards back and put them either in my hand or on the battlefield somehow. So
I totally just pulled him up on screen. Sign out the Ur-Dragon, search your library for a dragon permanent card, put it into your graveyard. If you do, he becomes a copy of that card to the end of your turn and shuffle. He is a 4/4 flyer. Yes, so there are, well, definitely, he's all colors. There are definitely cards that I can think of off the top of my head that would be great to bring him back and do some fun stuff.
Yes.
So I can recommend that after the podcast to you.
Yes,
so
that's the general hope and way I would like to build this deck. I'm going to take my time with it. I don't really care if it does good against other decks, but if it's fun to play as, that's all I care.
I want to tie that into my point of how my week went, but I don't want it to stop you from expressing.
I have one last thing, then you can,
you
can go. Last night, or Friday night, depending on when you're listening to this, I was finally able to get my first 400 character in Destiny.
Congratulations. I saw that tweet and was going to ask you about it on the podcast. I still not gotten there. I want to be there.
Yes.
But congratulations.
One day, young Frantic, you too.
I'm actually rather close. I'm at like 395.
Yes.
I think I need gauntlets at this point that are holding me back. And then a ghost. Yeah.
Boots were what was holding me back, and I turned in one of the weekly strike bounties that you can pick up from Commanders of Allah.
Yeah.
I'm like, before I turned it in, I'm like, give me boots, please, give me boots. And I turned the bounty in, saw a pair of boots pop up on my hunter, and I'm like, yes, boots. They're going to be 299, aren't they? And I looked at them, and it was like, boom, 400. And I'm like, well, those are going to my Warlock. 400 character.
I'm glad you did it.
Yes.
I envy you. All my guys are in the 390s, I think. Yep.
And that is how my past couple weeks have been.
Well,
I also wrote something, too, that hopefully I can get up on Frank Talks sometime this week.
Yeah, I think I said I was going to read that after this podcast.
Spoilers, man, spoilers.
We're not going to say what it is, but it's super secret. So
Anyways,
my week.
How was your week?
My week. All right, so I'll piggyback off the Destiny point and say that I finally have gotten a Celestial Nighthawk because Zer brought it on Friday. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm happy to have it because last time he came around and had it, I totally forgot to buy it, and that was like the only helmet I need beyond the Acculeophage symbiote for the hunter. I think that's the only one left. Yeah.
I think that's the one you told Freak Show and I the other night that you needed.
Yeah, beyond the actual like class items for the specific vendors, not the vendors, the factions. Right. The only hunter exotic I need is the Acculeophage symbiote now.
It's not
well. Except for the legendary, or not the exotic, what is it, sniper or whatever that you get that can only be used by a hunter. Technically, I need that.
It's a hand cannon. It's the Ace of Spades, I believe.
Oh, well, then that might not. Well, it's a quest for the gunsmith. Either way, I'm really far. I actually am close to finishing that one. I need to, whatever the Steel Piercer. That's what it is, right?
Yeah. It's a legendary sniper rifle for the hunter. Very good sniper rifle. I like it.
Yeah, I am finishing up that quest right now. I need to dismantle stuff. Either way. I got the Celestial Nighthawk. I was really happy to get it, and Zer brought it. I woke up Friday morning, and as I usually do, I check my YouTube subscriptions for the people who talk about Destiny. Saw the Zer update, clicked in, and immediately saw he was selling it, and was like, "Oh shit!" and went and turned my Xbox on. And then after I was getting ready for work, I literally bought it before I went to work Friday morning. So I was like, I didn't forget. Yeah.
The funny thing is I posted in the group chat that you, Freak Show, and I have, and it's like, hey, what's everyone's predictions going to be for Zer this weekend? And then both you and Freak Show said, I hope he brings a Celestial Nighthawk. And then he brings it, and then I'm sitting there Thursday night saying, wouldn't it be hilarious if Zer brought the Celestial Nighthawk and Frantic just could not find the time this weekend to possibly get on and get it?
Oh, I was going to make time, for sure. It wasn't going to take long. It takes forever to load into the damn game, I noticed, but other than that.
And I'm like, I know that's a totally jerk thing to think and say, but it would be absolutely hilarious.
It's kind of what happened last time. I was like, oh, I need to get that, and then just didn't do it. It wasn't that I didn't make time, though. It was that I just totally forgot.
Yes, well, you weren't going to forget this time, I felt.
No, not this time. And we've gotten to use it in Challenge Velders right now, currently.
So dumb.
Has Solar Burn, and
So
that
dumb.
was really dumb. We were like finishing it in like 3 or 4 minutes or something like that. It's really dumb. So if you haven't bought that and you're listening to this live, I know by the time this comes out it will be past its time. But if you are listening live, or you check it out on YouTube, usually it goes up on YouTube. Go get that before 5 a.m. Sunday morning, because it might not be 5. It's like I don't remember what time, but either way, early Sunday morning.
I think it's like 5 a.m. Eastern. That Zer goes away. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm usually asleep. I know that much.
So that's my main Destiny point. I was playing a good chunk of that. Got to play the new hotfix, which ties into our developer discussion here we're going to have in a little bit. And then Magic. A lot of Magic stuff. Well, I'll get to the Magic in a minute, because a couple other things happened. I'm slowly collecting all of the DC deck building games. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or if I've mentioned it before, but I actually really enjoy the DC deck building just card game. If you've ever played something like Dominion or Marvel's Legendary, they're kind of all similar in the sense of, you start with 10 basic cards, buy more cards as you go, someone wins by the end of it. I'm a really big fan of the DC deck building game. It's kind of got a here and there rep online, just because people don't like the flavor of it, because you're a superhero and you can buy villains to work for you, which doesn't technically fit into the lore, but it doesn't bother me as much as I just really enjoy DC comic characters. I've been getting a lot of the stuff for that. I'm currently sitting on 3 of the base games. There's 4 base games. There's the main expansion. There's one called Heroes Unite, one called Forever Evil, and then there's Teen Titans. The one I don't have is Forever Evil. My friends have it. So I was like, that'll be the last one I grab. And then there's these little 15 card expansions. There's 6 of those. I currently have 3 of them. And then there are 3 expansions that turn it into a co-op game instead of a you versus me game. I've been collecting them. I don't have any of those yet. But I've currently, in the past week or two, I've acquired a few of them and gotten to play them. And I've had a lot of fun playing them. They're a lot of fun. Teen Titans was the one I just got, along with the Watchmen expansion and the Justice Legion, or Justice Society. And I've gotten to play the Justice Society and Teen Titans. Haven't gotten to play Watchmen, though. Watchmen is a hidden role add-on, so it kind of makes it to where you're trying to figure out who's who. And that requires more than 2 people, who usually is the amount of people I have to play with it. So, if you're ever looking for a fun deck building game and you like DC Comics, I'd recommend it. It's a lot of fun. I really like it. The base game, the very original one, is definitely, I want to say, the worst, and not as in unplayable or anything like that. It's just, it has some issues that they ironed out come the expansions after it. So, it's good for learning, but then you definitely can pick up on what's wrong with it pretty quick. So,
sounds interesting.
Yeah, and then the little card expansions, you can just throw into any of them, and they work pretty well, because they're built pretty well. So I'll leave it at that, because I don't want to go on forever about that. And then Magic was the only other thing that I really did this week, in the past 2 weeks. I built my new commander, Cedric, the Trader King, who I could pull up again on screen, but I'm just not going to bother. He is basically just a black, blue, red zombie king. I don't remember what his other type is. He gives everything in my graveyard unearth, which basically means pay 3 mana, put that creature into the battlefield, gains haste, and then exile it if it would leave the battlefield at the end of the turn. So it can essentially just give you a one-off reanimation target, and you just chuck it at whoever you want. And so you usually want to play with enter the battlefield effects. So I originally had built a same color deck out of the original. The color combo is Grixis. It's red, green, black, or not red, green, black. Red, black, blue. I can't talk. It was a couple years ago they released the Commander pre-constructed decks in the allied shard colors. So Grixis is one of those allies. And I bought it, and I'd never really done anything with it. It was just a pre-con sitting around. So I took it apart and put this guy called Solkanar, the Swamp King, onto it, because he's a really cool dude. I bought an Italian version of the card, so since he's a Swamp King, I called him the Italian Boss Mob, because I'm just...
That's amazing.
So he was running the deck for a bit, but it ended up just being more of a Niv Mizzet, which is another commander who likes you to draw cards. It ended up being a Niv Mizzet deck with black in it. Niv Mizzet's red, blue. And I didn't like that because it was just like, there's no point in running him. So I replaced it with the Trader King, which is Cedric. Went and bought some cards for him. And we played last night. Luke had built another commander deck that is really hilarious, as is are most of his. He did mono white 5-color. Just think about that.
What?
It's really great. It's actually really funny.
I'm trying to wrap my mind around how mono white 5-color works.
It's essentially all of his cards, except for a select few, can be played with only white, but they also have alternative costs, whether it's colorless costs, or like you can pay hybrid mana.
Okay.
He produces a lot of white mana. His commander is the Reaper King Scarecrow, who's all 5 colors, or you can, for every color, you can either pay 2 colorless, or you can pay 2 generic, or that color. So it actually costs 10 maximum. So if he's running all white, it would roughly cost 8. That was his commander. It did a lot of really crazy stuff. It was a devotion style deck where he wanted white symbols in his permanents, and it got really, really ridiculous. And then my good friend Chris, he was running Obnixilis, which was the black pre-constructed commander from not too long ago. He ran the Stalwart Unity pre-constructed deck, which was very recent. It was the Group Hug one, the non-black one from the 4-color decks. And I want to say he ran one other one, but I don't remember. Oh yeah, Zuri from the enemy color pair pre-con decks from like 2 years ago. So we played a lot of good games, and my overall takeaway from Cedric was game 1. I totally did not have enough creatures because we were literally drawing 3 or 4 cards a turn, and I just ended up never finding a creature. I literally found creatures when I died, having been through half my deck. So I realized I need some more creatures. So when I died, I went and
I know how that feels.
I went and got all my cards out, searched through for some creatures, and refilled the deck. And then the next 2 games I played with them were a lot more fun. I did not end up winning, but I had a lot of fun seeing all the hilarious nonsense I could pull in that deck. I can't think of anything too scarily specific, but there are a lot of things in that deck that just get out of hand unbelievably fast. So that was really fun. And then I got a chance to play my Omnath deck, which is fun too, because Omnath is terrifying. It was really funny because Omnath, just you play a land, you get a 5/5 elemental. That's how he works. I put him on the battlefield, and then Chris had a card out that lets us put a land in at the end of his turn. It was just like, oh, land, I got a 5/5 elemental. My turn. Oh, we're allowed to play 2 lands a turn? Oh, I have 2 lands in hand. And he looks over and he's like, what just happened? I was like, oh, Omnath got played. And now I have, 3 or 4 5/5s that get +2/+2 at combat. So I have 4 7/7s.
Oh
what
God.
are you doing with your life? And it's just really scary.
Oh my God.
Omnath's he's crazy. I had a lot of fun with that deck, and that's actually the deck I did on the Magic.Frantic Talks website. I did a deck tech of Omnath, Mind Over Commander, I want to say, and I built that deck, and it's really stupid. That's why I'm always really scared when I do these Mind Over Commanders, that if I actually build these decks, people will not like me, because they are terrifying. So
I might have to check some of those out just to see what all is there.
The Atraxa one I did, it wasn't Atraxa, but it was the first partner commander one we did with the persisting ones.
Yes.
That, I believe, would be the very worst to build if you do not want friends.
Right.
Because it just stops your opponents from doing anything, and if they do anything, you're just right back where you started, even after they did the stuff. It is a
It's
deck.
not a friendly deck.
It is terrifying.
Right.
So, that being said, that about covers how my weeks went. The reason we're talking a lot here is just because we don't have any articles to discuss. We're literally going to talk about one particular thing. So, and we were away for 2 weeks, so a lot more to fill the filler, if that makes any sense.
Sure, go with it.
So, let's preface this. Grunt and I tend to talk about what we want to talk about on the podcast naturally, but essentially, topics. What do we want to talk about this week? Is there anything on your mind? Top 5 sequels, for instance. We want to do that. At the end of one of our most recent podcasts, I threw out a couple ideas at him. Most of them are probably going to be topics in the future, so I don't want to really spoil them. But one of them was basically in relation to the hotfix that was being released to Destiny. Now, the hotfix hadn't come out yet. We had just watched the stream of it, and some people were making wide speculation and talking like the world was on fire. And it was basically because they're nerfing things and changing things.
World's still not on fire, by the way.
The world's fine. It's actually freezing. It was really hot yesterday, and now it's snowing. That's not a joke. It was 75 yesterday, and we just moved my girlfriend in snow.
There's snow on the ground here, but yeah.
I don't understand. I mean, I understand it's global warming, but climate change, all that fun stuff. But either way, we came up with this idea that it was like, oh, we should talk about, how the game developers test their games. Because it was kind of clear on the stream that they did that the guys who were the people making these changes weren't the most adept at the game. And it brings up an interesting conversation that if I'm developing a game, for instance, and I'm not good at the game, how can I say what needs to be changed? That would be the argument I would say for it. Like, if you aren't good at this game, you don't know how to balance it. That's a pretty strong argument, I'd say. And then the other side is, well, if you're a game developer / designer, you know what works and what doesn't, essentially. So, for instance, if in the realm of graphic design, for instance, or web design, because we have the website up in the background right now, if you looked at our website and said, something doesn't work particularly,
I don't like that logo.
Yeah, so okay, we could use the logo even. That's fine. I'm fine with that. I'm not that good of a graphic designer. I won't lie. You could totally
the first thing that popped into my head that's on the website.
You're fine. It's on screen now. Here, I can get rid of the website because it's in the background of the fucking podcast always. Here we go. See, so this very nice, this very somewhat symmetrical logo. You could probably pick this apart if you knew anything about design. But if you didn't know anything about it, you probably couldn't critique it. You could say that looks good or that looks bad. So the argument for it essentially being, I know what looks good, and I know the understanding, the work. Oh, I just bumped my mic. The in and outs of it, why it works, versus putting it into practice. Right. So that would be the two arguments. And the reason I want to talk about this is because it has become extremely prevalent in the things I enjoy the most, not just Destiny. So I have the Destiny site up in my browser, which I've gotten rid of. Oh no, the browser's not working again. Why?
Oh, great.
Why does this happen? Someone tell me why this does this. Okay, so I had Bungie up on the background, but I'm also going to pull up Magic briefly, because I'm going to cover that, but then we're going to go back and probably talk more about Bungie in Destiny, because it's probably more easy for Grunt to talk about, because he doesn't know nearly as much as I do about the development of Magic. But this topic also came up in Magic's world. So if you don't follow Magic, that's fine. This is very interesting. The browser is not fully on screen.
You broke it, didn't you? I knew you did.
I apparently fucked this thing up. What happened?
Wow.
Okay, this is fine. We're fine. The world's not on fire, I promise. So
no, the world's on fire. I see it right there.
How about yours? This way I like it. I never get. Okay, so with Magic, the just made a Smash Mouth reference. Yeah.
We're done here.
Oh, jeez. I'm going to get to my point here. Magic, if you don't follow it, that's fine. Recently, some cards got banned from Magic. Now, this is the first time it's happened in Standard in 6 years, because 2011, I think, was the last time they did it. In Standard, which is the easiest set to get into because it uses the most recent cards. In Standard, they normally don't ban a card because Standard, the life cycle of the cards in the set are only 2 years. So 2 years from now, the cards that we're playing with in Standard, you won't be playing with it from 2 years from now. So they usually don't make the change because, they release a set every, 3 months. Usually the stuff that enters can kind of answer it. So they banned 3 cards. Now, the cards are irrelevant. What matters is they were like, we need to pay more attention to Standard because it's been having a lot of issues with player retention. FNMs are at an all-time low in terms of Standard FNMs. All the other formats are kind of just shining more. So they were like, okay, what's the problem? Well, 25 to 30% of the decks are the same deck. So odds are when you go to play, you're going to be playing against that deck, you'll be playing that deck, or you'll get lucky and have one round where you don't play that deck. Which doesn't sound like fun if you don't like the deck, or it sounds great if you like the deck because you know the in and outs of it. Depends on your point of view. Regardless, I'd argue most players don't want to sit and play the same deck over and over again. That's just personal experience. And so they decided to ban some stuff. You wouldn't? Okay, well, that's yeah. More to my point, but they decided to ban some stuff. And then when they started spoiling the new set, which is Ether Revolt, which is the set on screen, it's more to it than a picture, but, more to the point, they started spoiling cards, and a card got spoiled called Feldar Guardian, which essentially goes infinite with a card from Kaladesh, which was the previous set. And within minutes, one of the top pro players, don't remember his name, I apologize, he tweeted out, hey, this goes infinite with this. We come to find out later, Wizards never found that out in playtesting. They never noticed that. So how playtesting works when they design this game is they design all the cards, however they want to see it fit. So Aether Revolt, they're like, oh, okay, we're in this plane we've created that's very steampunky, and it uses Aether is their energy source, and it's going to fight back because they're abusing it and all this other stuff. And they create cards based off of this concept, and then they send it to development, where development kind of tweaks the cards, tweaks how much each card costs, play tests them in multiple environments, including limited, which is your booster draft, and they also test it with, they say, standard and sometimes modern. Modern being the next step up from standard. It goes about back to like 2004, roughly. So the reason I'm covering all this is because it's important to know kind of how their process works, and they say they test it for limited environment at most, which is your booster draft, where it matters the most how the cards work together, and then standard, the next step up. They say they test it there. No one found out this combo that someone at a pro level was able to see in 5 seconds. Now that's an exaggeration. He caught it in 5 minutes, but you get my point. They handed off Kaladesh in 14 or 15 to development, which was almost 2 years before we even saw it. And for them to have not...
Kaladesh just came out last year.
Yeah, Kaladesh came out at the end of last year. And they did it when Journey to Nyx came out is when they handed it out. And I don't remember when Nyx was. I want to say it was early 2015. So a year and a half in advance. And they were developing that. So you can argue Aether Revolt was a little later. It was the next set, whatever. At least a year and a half at most. And they still couldn't figure out this one infinite combo. And that's kind of one of the biggest decks right now. Now, there's other cards that are doing better, but that's still like, how do they not catch that? And that's where people were saying, well, it's because they don't have very many pro players. They have people who are more oriented on the development inner workings than the people who will be able to pick out what makes the cards as good as they are when they do it as much as they do.
Right.
So I found it really interesting that not even a week after the hotfix stream, this article and a lot of discussion started surfacing around Magic as well, because I was like, wow, this is really relevant to a lot of the stuff I enjoy. And, Grunt, you plays Magic as well. And he and I play a lot of Punji, and we play a lot of Destiny, and the hotfix came out, and we could talk about what that did, but I think it's more appropriate to talk about future changes, like the future of Destiny 2 and the future of gaming in the sense of developers, how do they test their games, what could be the best way to do it. Now, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but it's a conversation I think we should have. So now my long-winded backstory here is set. You have any thoughts on this immediately, Grunt, before I kind of try to play it off here?
Well, balancing for games is very, very important to the overall health of the game. Having people that... brief thoughts are having people that encompass varying skill levels for any kind of game, test the game, test these changes is important, because a high-level player may find something, in your case, in the example you gave for Magic, a pro-level player found that within a very short time that, hey, this card is going to be super broke with this one. Someone of my skill level has only been playing for about 6 months probably, is probably not going to think that unless they're really smart and they are able to figure that out themselves. So I think having the varying skill levels there is important. Hello?
I muted my mic. I was taking drinks.
All right, then.
I was sitting here talking, and it just wasn't coming through. Man, I'm doing really good today, guys. Okay, let's piggyback off of what you just said. Because that's what I was actually trying to say. So, varying skill level, I think, is very important. So, when you talk about Destiny, not everybody is reading the patch notes trying to find the one little change that's going to make their gun the best, or they're not spending hours in the Crucible min-maxing their character to get tier 12 or anything like that. There are a lot of players, and this applies to Magic too. The Magic subreddit is like 1% of all the people who play Magic. They're allowed 1%. And Wizards has always said they acknowledge that the people online aren't the only people that play, and they try to keep others in mind. They have a lot more market data than we have access to, so I would say usually it's safe to trust what they say, although they could be trying to fit their own narrative. In I think the same applies to Destiny, where if we had all the top tier people doing the playtesting and tweaking, I think we could get the best results. But you also have to keep in mind that they can do things that are very skill intensive. So if I told you, and this is more to the general listener, not necessarily to Grunt, because he's going to know what I mean. If I told you that the Titan subclasses are much better than you think, you just need to Titan skate, and you were a generic, just a general player of Destiny who has played a Titan a few times, would you have even known? Would you even know what that meant? And if that's what would define how a Titan goes from this underpowered piece of crap to a very good, top tier player, that's a problem to me. Advanced techniques in advanced game play, in like the top tiers people, when they're playing against each other, that stuff matters. But in your generic level gameplay, it really doesn't. And that's not to say we shouldn't just fix things at the top tier. I'm not saying ignore them, but I think that then it comes down to a very tricky setup. Do we please the top players and go for the people who stream as pros, who are really good, who do the trial streams on the weekend and carry people without even trying? Do we appeal to them, or do we appeal to the people who are just kind of playing this more regularly, who do it more casually? A filthy casual like me, who plays only a couple hours but knows the in and outs of the game.
Right.
That's how I kind of think about it. It's tricky to be able to balance it, because if I read somewhere, and I want to say it was on the Destiny subreddit, that Overwatch, when they are testing balancing, they essentially do a closed beta where they have the changes they're going to do, bring in a lot of top players, test it out, see how they get the feedback, figure out if everything changed was good, bad, what needs to be tweaked and stuff like that, and then they finally release the update. I read that on the Destiny subreddit. If that is wrong, please correct me. It might have been a different game, but I have no doubt in my mind that does happen in some games. So would you say that something like that is better than the developers themselves just testing the game and figuring out what they think is broken when they know how the game works way better than the people just playing it know?
I wouldn't say it's better necessarily, no.
Okay.
It's a good way to gather feedback from people that really play the game and try and essentially play at the top level that they can. Mm-hmm. But knowing how your own game works is just as important tool when looking and evaluating things like feedback and that stuff.
I agree with that.
So, with like Destiny, you have to take into consideration too that not only are they looking at the feedback that the community is providing on both Reddit and, like on their own website, over Twitter, Facebook, social media places, everywhere. They are also looking at the in-game data. Mm-hmm. And they take that into consideration when making certain changes, they've said. So I don't think just having top tier players is the end all way to, make sure everything works.
I am a big, I guess, believer would be the right term, in everybody has their extremes. So when people talk about, the issue here is we don't have the top tier players testing to tell you what works and what doesn't. And then you also have the people who are just like, the game developers know their game. I often find no matter what extreme you're in, the answer is really in the middle, where I'm a big fan of beta testing, because being able to hand out a game before it's ready to go for the last final tweaks and have people give you feedback on what worked and what didn't, maybe iron out some bugs that you didn't catch, is one of the best things a developer can do. I know firsthand. I've coded a lot of websites, and not to say websites and video games are interchangeable, but the logic there is very similar, at least when it comes to coding, because you start from this ground up. You start building the structure. You put in the nice pieces. Once the structure's in place, you start adding extra little things here and there, and you're finally finished with your product. And then you hand it out ready to go, and then something breaks on it that you just could not have accounted for. It happens with literally every game, most softwares, if not all. Uh, and I think it's a great idea to do beta testing in that sense because not only do you catch the bugs, but when it comes to games like first-person shooters, big time, usually there's a couple of weapons that are going to stand out above the rest, and that's how game balance works. Tragically, there's no true equilibrium because if every gun was equally balanced, they'd all be the same, and there's no flavor to them. They could have cooler skins, but that's it. There's no true balance because it just doesn't work that way. So when it comes to releasing your game early, it's like as a beta test, you could say, okay, we have all these guns. Keep an eye on this one because maybe we might have unbalanced it. See what people use the most, and they can clearly gather all this data. They've shown us the graphs on stream that they were able to. Destiny is what I'm talking about here. Bungie and Destiny, they're interchangeable in my vocabulary apparently. They were able to gather all this data, so I would suffice it to say that it's probably possible with most games to gather that, unless someone just built the game very poorly,
Right.
to gather that information and be able to say, here's where the issue stems from, or this gun has this ability we didn't realize it was happening. Like No Land Beyond in Destiny is a sniper rifle that doesn't flinch like all other sniper rifles. It's kind of weird, but that's a thing. Was that something they intentionally did or not? I personally don't know, and it's something they actually said they're going to address. But it's stuff like that you just don't realize. So that's the benefit of beta testing, and I say that because it's also a benefit of game balance in being able to try to go get as close to equilibrium as possible. Destiny, I feel like, just to kind of throw it under the bus here, I always have felt like it doesn't matter what gun you like when playing PvP. You really have to play with, find the one you like out of the best instead of finding the gun you like and playing with it. And this is a little side topic that we could talk about some other point, but it's essentially PvE versus PvP being meshed together. So that's a topic for another day. But I've always found that the weapon balancing they do, it usually just kills off whatever was the best gun and the next gun rises. And I don't think that's effective game balancing. And I would hope with Bungie, or not Bungie, oh my god, I about said Bungie too. I would hope with...
Gotta stop that.
I know, I'm really bad at this. I would hope by Destiny 2 we've come up with a better way of balancing and getting all the weapons into a better state and being able to test more effectively, but... I guess what I want to say here is our final conclusion. Do you think that, and we're gonna use Destiny here because that's what we talked about the most, the one we can relate to the most. Do you think that they are effectively testing and releasing changes, or do you think there needs to be a lot of more room of improvement by the time the next one comes out? I guess is my real question through all of this. Grunt.
I think they are doing the best they can at it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's a lot of things that they don't anticipate their community to do because I honestly didn't foresee No Land Beyond becoming more noticeable in the Crucible with the special ammo changes, but looking back at it, it makes sense because people rely heavily on sniper rifles for the game, so that's what they're going to use. And especially with like that one that doesn't have flinch, it's good. That's a good choice for people that like sniper rifles. That's a good choice for them to go. It's also the only primary sniper rifle out there, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested to see how their process will change between now and Destiny 2. But
Right.
I think for now it's fairly okay. It's pretty okay. Okay.
Excuse me.
That's a word. Pretty okay, yeah.
Yeah, if I had answered my own question there, I do think that they are doing a pretty good job. I just think uh, there's a lot of oversights, you know? Um, like, no changes to the sidearms. Sidearms spawn with more ammo, then the ammo carries over, and it just gets out of hand really quick, especially because they're specials and not just like little hand cannons. And I don't mean a hand cannon as in like a fast firing hand cannon, but think a fast firing scout rifle. Um, it's not like that. The No Land Beyond, I think the whole reason it's gaining traction is because you could do sidearm No Land Beyond. It's just like having the flip where you have like a scout rifle and a sniper. Uh, you know, that's definitely probably the driving factor, and then also the no flinch. Which, if you're curious, it's visually you're flinching, but you're actually not. It's just a glitch, I think. Freak Show could explain it much better than I could. Shout out to Freak Show, the podcast ghost. That's actually pretty fitting. My ghost could tell me more about my guns than I could. Wow.
That's wow.
Huh.
Man, we're getting all
Meta. Anyways.
meta here.
I think they're doing pretty good. I just think either they jump the gun too quickly, because I know when I develop things and code things, when I find a solution, or at least what appears to be a solution, I can get excited and really quickly just like wanting to share it and prove that I fixed it, when there could be unknown side effects. So I feel like maybe that's possibly a mild thing that's happening here in the behind the scenes, and I do hope they do get better at testing it once Destiny 2 comes. And I think that they could benefit from outside help, as in like maybe doing a closed beta every now and then to test big changes like this. Because one thing that a beta test can do that a development team can't is get outside people who don't know how your game works to just break it. When you know how it works, it's harder to find the errors with it because you know what to do to get it to work. So when you're trying to break it, it's not as intuitive in my mind when I'm like, I've coded a bunch of websites. Trying to break a website, it's not something that just comes to me. I usually have trouble trying to figure out what the issues are, and then when I hand that off to somebody and be like, yeah, test it for me, they find a bunch of stuff that I never even thought of. Right. And with the amount of people we could get into a beta test, even if it's 10,000 at most, that's still 10,000 more trial and errors than you had. So I think they could benefit from something like that if it was ever economically feasible. And all developers could if they ever had the money for it. It's just something that seems to me and seems to be where I think the best option is. And there's no right or wrong answer, truly. There's a more effective answer, which I think is my answer, of course, because I'm biased. But I think that's what I have to say is that overall, my conclusion. As I just keep spewing word vomit onto my microphone at this point.
Yes, I think in terms of, in general, testing and improving like game balance, there's always room for improvement in the method of doing that. Mm-hmm. A lot of developers, do it now where they combine the feedback from their community, their own focus or test groups that they have, beta tests, for example, and their own in-game data, and they combine those and mash them up into what they think could fix the problem. And I think that's the way they need to keep going for that stuff, because that does give a decent, in my mind anyhow, it gives a decent amount of feedback, and data doesn't lie. Usually.
That is very true.
Data doesn't lie usually. So you take all that stuff, you take it to your development team, and then it's like, we need to look at all these and figure out how to change it. And then you come up with solutions from there, and then you maybe test it again, see what those are, how those changes are perceived, how they're taken, and then that's when you can maybe like release your update to the public. But there's a whole lot of probably red tape and that stuff that they have to go through,
Oh yeah, for sure. It's not something you can simply just do. There's a
and
lot to it.
in a game like Destiny or Overwatch, where your player base and the way your players play is constantly evolving, whether that be just who all is playing or because of the way the game itself changes. You don't really have a whole lot of time to go through all this rigorous testing for everything. So you kind of have to decide, do you want to put out the perfect patch, or do you want to put out something that is going to solve some problems now, but maybe create some more later on that you just have to solve later? Which I think is a little bit the case right now. I don't think Bungie oversaw the fact that sidearms were going to be more popular. A lot of people have said that, and said that, why didn't they see this? I don't think they didn't see it. They knew it was going to happen, but
they acknowledged that they imagined there would be an uptick, but I think they said the amount that it went up they did not expect.
Yes.
To where it's literally everyone uses one.
I mean, I still have my sniper rifle. Thank you very much.
I do too. I'm just saying it's a
can't use a
vast
sidearm
majority.
to save my life. I can't use a sidearm to save my life.
That's
the
tricky.
whole purpose.
Yeah, it is.
So yeah, you can't really. You can't predict that stuff necessarily. You can to some extent, but you can't until the update is out there and you get feedback. So it's updating a game is essentially a trial and error process in its own right as well.
Absolutely. With anything that I do in my jobs that I've done with coding and the like, it is always trial and error.
And you're never going to make everyone happy.
No, and they shouldn't strive to do that.
Yes, no matter what field you're in, web development,
absolutely,
game development, friggin'
life lessons with Frantic Talks.
Yes.
so
yeah, you're not going to make everyone happy, and it's just game worlds now are evolving. Like I said, whether it's the player base itself or the game itself, it's changing.
Yeah.
So it's a little difficult to constantly keep up on that, especially when you have deadlines for other projects, other things you need to work on. So.
Yeah. So I think that about sums it up. I have little side notes in my head that I want to mention that are related, but not like, oh, also think about this. It's more so. Oh yeah, so side notes. They said they're gonna try to fix that sidearm issue to like nerf the ammo. I don't understand how the ammo doesn't. So when they originally removed special ammo in like trials, the sidearm glitch was how people were doing it. Like they'd start with the sidearm and then switch weapons when they died. The sidearm would spawn with less ammo at the beginning of each round. I don't know how that didn't get carried over, and that should just be how it works. Like you start with like a clip and a half after you die, instead of like 3 clips or whatever it is, or your ammo just carries over. I don't understand why that didn't get carried over. But if it did, and I'm just stupid, let me know. That's where I'm just like, how'd that not happen? And I think the only other thing is how they lead the stream off with, we aren't going to nerf things into the ground. That's everyone's complaint is, we don't want our guns to be awful. We just want them to not be as crazy good. And they just proceed to literally nerf everything into the ground. They literally destroyed shotguns. That's not a joke. Not to say that I'm upset, per se. I didn't mind using a shotgun. I just always feel kind of meh when I kill somebody with a shotgun because it feels unfair. But they really just kind of killed him. Not gonna lie. I don't know. Those are just the thoughts that came to my mind when I'm thinking about the topic at hand, where it's my specific issues with what they said. I'm by no means salty about any of this. I was fine with the hotfixes. I was like, oh, that's all interesting, and I'll definitely enjoy playing. Usually whatever defines the meta isn't something too effective on me. Sure, I do pick up guns, and I'm like, wow, this gun's really dumb. But I guess what bothers me more than anything is just how I can find a gun that's really fun, but is only fun in like PvE, and I wish I could kill people with it in PvP.
Right.
But that doesn't have to do with the hotfix, so.
Hashtag feedback.
Yeah, hashtag feedback. wonder if we could just call this episode that. No, we should probably be a little more specific. Either way. Do you have any side notes, Grunt?
Nothing I can think of now.
Okay. Well, I think that about does it then. We're getting close to our time here. We've technically gone over the time I usually aim for, which we've done in the past couple episodes, but either way, it's fine. So I will head into advertisement / self-promotion. So I want to hear what you guys have to say about this topic, because like I said, there's no right or wrong answer, I don't think. If you want to continue that conversation, hit us up on Twitter at frantic_talks is the both of us. I am at franticj3. He is at Onyx Spartan, ONYX, all one word. Spartan, of course. That is where we will definitely have a good conversation there. Twitter comes straight to my phone. Facebook does not. Facebook.com/frantic talks, speaking of, is where you could also talk about this when we share the podcast. We'll probably talk there too, I imagine. Just like I said, Twitter's probably the best option. Or you could head over to frantictalks.com and click on any of the podcasts that you want, probably this one, and you could go to the comment section on there. We don't get terribly too many comments to the website, though, so whatever. But if you click on that podcast, you'll see the YouTube version of this podcast, and you can maybe go over there, subscribe, throw in a comment, a like, whatever you want, and we could continue the conversation there. There are a lot of ways to do this, by the way, if you haven't thought about this.
Interesting.
Those are most of the interactive ways. You could also subscribe to us on iTunes if you don't want to miss an episode. Subscribe, like I said, to the YouTube channel. We will always upload the video versions of the podcast there first, usually Saturday or Sunday, and you usually get the audio version on Monday on iTunes. And I think that about does it. Twitch.tv/Frantic Talks, man. I'm like running through the stuff that's on the podcast page, and I'm like, oh, there's a Twitch. Twitch.tv/Frantic Talks, all one word. We are live every Saturday, usually at 3 p.m. Eastern, usually, asterisk. And if you want to join in on the live chat, once again, that's how you can extend the conversation, but that's more so as we're talking, and I'll give you a shout out normally. So, if you want to be forever eternalized, or not eternalized, immortalized, that's the right word. You're going to forever immortalized in one of our podcasts. Check us out live every Saturday, usually, at 3 p.m. Eastern, usually. At twitch.tv/Frantic Talks, all one word. And subscribe there, or whatever the thing is. I don't actually know what it's called on Twitch. There's like 6 different things you can do.
If you're partnered streaming, or a partner channel that's subscribing, otherwise there's just following.
Okay, so follow us on Twitch, because I don't use Twitch that often. I just kind of broadcast and sometimes catch live streams at work when I'm bored. So,
I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I don't know. Just follow us everywhere, all the places.
Do that, and we will definitely love to have more conversations about the stuff we talk about. Because the content is not normally. It all ends when we stop talking. It's never how it works. So. All right, guys, I think that about does it for us. Like I said, hit us up on those places. Love to talk to you. And we will most likely see you next week. All right, I'm Frantic.
I'm Grunt.
We'll see you guys next time.